Season 2 of The Wheel of Time on Prime Video is just around the corner. We still don't have an official trailer, though I'm sure one is coming very soon. But we do have tons of really great stuff like teasers, cast and location reveals, official promotional images, and some answers from Rafe Judkins, the showrunner, and from Sarah Nakamura, the show's resident book expert. All of these are like breadcrumbs we can follow that will help us map out what to expect for the story and characters in Season 2 of The Wheel of Time on Prime Video. Let's see what we can piece together. Welcome to Unraveling the Pattern. I'm Lauren. We've got a lot to discuss, so look at the chapters below to skip as needed, like this video, subscribe to Unraveling the Pattern, and since I don't do sponsors, please consider supporting me through Patreon or here on YouTube, like these awesome people. Spoilers for this video will cover all of Season 1 of the TV show, and speculation about story and plot points for the entirety of Season 2. Full story book spoilers will cover the first 3 Wheel of Time books, up through The Dragon Reborn. Also, some vague details about locations and plot points for Book 4, and even a little bit beyond will be discussed. That being said, if you wish to remain completely spoiler-free, this video might not be for you. Okay, the Season 2 wrap teaser from way back in May of 2022 contains 23 shots. The behind-the-scenes teaser from July of 2022 has 36 shots. In October of 2022, we got 2 promotional stills and a sneak peek video with 38 new shots. Very recently, in May of 2023, we got a short clip that shows our first look at Mira Sayal as Varen on a street in what is likely Tar Valon. There was a set reveal in a recent JordanCon video from April of 2023, and we got 8 new promotional stills in late May of 2023. And most recently, 4 more promotional images were released in June of 2023. One of the promotional stills from May takes place in the same location as the set reveal from the JordanCon video, so I'll remove these shots of Rafe and the Aiel women being interviewed here for now. I'm also removing some of the less useful shots, like duplicates, table reads, props, stunt shots, or obvious behind-the-scenes locations that are featured in other shots. This leaves us with exactly 95 images to try and place into our Season 2 story. And this is how I think everything will go down. I'm sure some of my assumptions are wrong, and I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. But before I get into the weeds of all this, let's talk a bit about what to expect in Season 2. Remember, you can always navigate based on the chapters below. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. If you didn't like Season 1 because of the changes from the books, you're probably going to have similar concerns about Season 2. From all we've heard, Season 2 will have even more changes than Season 1 did. I'm a firm believer in giving the show time to prove that it's trying to tell the big picture story from the books, and that while the journey is a bit different, the end goal of the show is the same as the books. I found so many clues from Season 1 that prove that the writers have the end of the story in mind, and I strongly believe that the quality of the show will get even better with time. I just hope enough people watch it, and that Amazon will keep funding it. With that in mind, here are a few things to consider as we attempt to build Season 2. First, Rafe said that Season 2 will cover pieces of Books 1, 2, and 3. My guess is that the remaining bits from Book 1 will most likely involve Perrin's storyline in Season 2, which got a bit overlooked in Season 1 in my opinion. We know that Elias Machira, the wolf brother, and Hopper, the wolf, will be in Season 2. Also, we still haven't seen the Royal Palace of Camelin or Queen Morgase, even though they were introduced in Book 1, but I don't think they'll be in Season 2 either. Recent rumors say that The Wheel of Time was filming Season 3 in locations where the Lion Banner of Andor was visible. My guess is that they'll introduce Queen Morgase and the Royal Palace of Andor, and possibly some of the other members of Elaine's family later on in Season 3. Second, Sarah Nakamura recently mentioned on Twitter that we can expect more changes from the books in Season 2. We all know they had some major roadblocks at the end of Season 1, which required major rewriting of certain storylines. Often Sarah and Rafe and others use the term "gird your loins" to prepare us for changes from books to show. I'll talk more about some of these supposed changes as we continue, but gird your loins. As I've said, Season 2 will likely frustrate book purists even more than Season 1. And third, in case you're really concerned that the show will veer too far from the books, the good news is that Rafe has said that they're trying to, quote, get a fair amount of what's done in books 1 through 3 by the end of Season 2, so that Season 3 can be a much closer adaptation of The Shadow Rising. In other words, Season 3 will be more accurate to Book 4, which happens to be my favorite book. This means storylines and character arcs will need to end in Season 2 to more or less align with certain characters going to the Aiel Waste and others returning to the Two Rivers for Season 3. Rafe mentioned that, quote, large parts will still be held for later. I strongly believe we won't be seeing Tyr, Kalendor, or the Stone of Tyr in Season 2, or at least not as it appears in Book 3. We have already seen glimpses of the Stone of Tyr from Season 1, but that's not what I mean. I just think Rand will get Kalendor a bit later in the show, probably after the events of Books 4 and 5. I understand that I could be wrong, and I'd love to hear your opinions in the comments. If you're anything like my dad, you've read the books but don't remember much of the story details or what happened in each book. So as a very quick reminder, the main locations in Book 2, The Great Hunt, are Faldara, Tar Valon, Cairhien, and Falma on Tomon Head, just beyond Almuth Plain, with some weird time jumps and portal stone shenanigans in between. The group starts together in Faldara, many are separated into smaller groups, but then eventually just about everyone meets back up together in Falma, where Rand faces Ishamael. Key moments in Book 2 include the Battle of Faldara, where the horn and Mat's dagger are stolen by Padan Fain, Rand meeting Selene/Lanfear in the Portal Stone Mirror World, Nynaeve's accepted test, Cairhien, where Rand sees a strange statue and gets accidentally involved in the Game of Houses, Egwene being captured and collared as a Damane by the Shan-Chan, the famous Flicker Flicker Portal Stone sequence where Rand, Mat, Perrin, and others experience thousands of lives, Rand defeating Turok, the Shan-Chan Blademaster, and Falma, Mat blowing the horn of Valir, the Battle of Falma, and finally Rand fighting Ishamael in the sky above Tomon Head. Special thanks to Todd Draws on Twitter for giving me permission to show these amazing images. You really should be following him and his journey as he draws pictures from every single chapter in the Wheel of Time. In Book 3, The Dragon Reborn, the main locations are Tar Valon, a bit of Caemlyn, a tiny bit of Ilion, and Tyr, with more small places in between. The World of Dreams, or Teleron Riad, is featured as well. Rand is alone for much of Book 3, with the story focusing more on Moraine, Lan, Perrin, Mat, Egwene, Nynaeve, and Elaine. But similar to Book 2, all of the main characters end up in the same place, this time in Tyr. Key moments in Book 3 include Egwene receiving her dream ring from Varen, Egwene's accepted test, the start of the Black Aja hunt, Mat being fully healed from the Shadow Logoth dagger, Mat beating Gawain and Galad with a quarterstaff, Mat's luck kicking in, Perrin saving Gaul from a cage, Perrin meeting Fail, Darkhounds, the battle in the Stone of Tyr, and finally, again, Rand facing and this time defeating Ishamael in Tyr, where he leaves behind a corpse. This has all been discussed before, but it bears repeating that Books 2 and 3 have very similar story arcs, and it makes a lot of sense to consolidate those stories into one season, with a final matchup between Rand and Ishamael in one location instead of two. Rafe basically confirmed this in an interview. Rafe and Brandon Sanderson thought it was best to consolidate Books 2 and 3 so that Season 3 will align with the start of Book 4, The Shadow Rising, as we've already discussed. This means that either Tyr or Falma has to be removed or placed somewhere else in the show after the events of Book 4. All evidence indicates that Falma is where Season 2 will end. To add more flames to the Falma fire, when the recent promotional images were made public by Amazon Studios, they accidentally included episode numbers in the image data for each of the stills that were released. We know Season 2 will have 8 episodes. These 2 images come from Episode 8, the Season 2 finale. This image of Perrin, Aviendha, and Massima, who's wearing Shan-Chan armor by the way, match the location of other shots that clearly take place in Falma with the Shan-Chan and White Cloaks. And this image of Rand actually goes along with some of these other images of Turok and the Shan-Chan, which I've discussed in more detail in other videos. And finally, with regards to Falma, though the accuracy of this can't be verified as legit, this leaked description of Season 2 from way back in January of 2022 was supposedly part of a Wheel of Time survey. It clearly outlines the story for Season 2, and it includes this statement. Throughout the season, we will see all of our characters make their way to the first major city the Shan-Chan capture, leading up to what could only be a great battle. This has to be Falma. The one thing that makes this statement confusing is that earlier it mentions that Rand is hiding in the, quote, cosmopolitan city of Falma as he tries to fight off madness. But I'm gonna guess this is actually referring to Cairhien. So, we know more or less where in the story Season 2 will end, but how will it start? Marcus Rutherford, who plays Perrin, said in an interview that there will be a time jump in Season 2. The cast and Rafe talked about how Season 2 will give each of the characters more of a chance to learn and grow individually, and that one of the themes of Season 2 is loneliness. So I'm guessing that most of them will already be separated at the start of Season 2, more in line with how Book 3 starts. We obviously won't get the Battle of Faldara, since that already happened at the end of Season 1. My guess is that Egwene and Nynaeve will arrive at or will already be in Tar Valon at the start of the season. I think Mat is already there as well. I'm also pretty sure we won't be seeing Caemlyn or Ilion in Season 2. This leaves us with Cairhien, Tar Valon, and Falma, with a few places in between, including possibly Mirror Worlds and maybe an Ogier Steading, but definitely not Tyr. Okay, finally. Let's do our best to put these shots into some sort of order. The episode labels for some of the promotional shots will really help to give us a solid foundation to work from. According to the official Amazon press release, these shots of Egwene and Matt are part of episode 1. These shots with Nynaeve and Lan are part of episode 3. This shot of Moraine is episode 4. This confusing shot with Loial, Ishamael, and the Shan-Chan blood or nobility, probably Suroth, is from episode 5. And these last two shots with Perrin, Aviendha, and Masema, and this one with Rand, are both episode 8, the season finale. We have some obvious White Tower shots, but other than that, I can't be certain about any of these locations. This is of course all speculation on my part, but I believe Moraine is in Cairhien here in episode 4, and I'm pretty sure many of these shots with the Shan-Chan and White Cloaks either take place in Falma or the surrounding regions in Almoth Plain or Toman Head. I'll put the ones I'm more sure about into the different episode columns, but then there's this row, which I've essentially divided into early season 2, middle season 2, and late or end season 2. I also have these sections, which are kind of in limbo, because I'm not sure if they'll be early or late season, so I'm kind of putting them in these overlapping spaces between these sections. This doesn't mean that I think these will take place in episode 3, I just think they'll happen sometime before or during episode 4. Same for these shots, I think much of these have to happen before the Battle of Falma, but not necessarily in episode 6. There are a few remaining shots that I just can't place, so I'm putting them in this unknown section for now. I'll speculate a bit about these as we go. Let's first focus just on the early season and episodes 1 through 3. Episode 2 doesn't have any official images, so I don't have anything assigned to it. I've divided these early season shots by character and scenes that I think go together, but I'm not sure exactly when they'll happen. I believe this shot of Pat and Fane is in or near the same location as this shot of the Dark Friends Social. If you don't believe this is the Dark Friends Social, but possibly a meeting between the Forsaken or something, see my sneak peek teaser breakdown for more details. Rather than following the Dark Friend meeting from the point of view of the man who calls himself Bors, like in the prologue of The Great Hunt, I think we might get Pat and Fane walking through this location just before or just after the social. Or I'm way off, and this is a shot of Pat and Fane entering an area to meet with the Shan-Chan way later in the season, like he does in book 2. As you can see, I'm already second guessing my choices, but we'll leave this here for now. I think Pat and Fane and Ishamael's motives will be clear from early in the season, and I don't think they'll keep Ishamael's identity a secret for long. They pretty much already spoiled it in the sneak peek teaser. I think Ishamael's motives in season 2 will focus on freeing Lanfear and possibly other Forsaken, influencing the Shan-Chan, and taunting Rand in his dreams, trying to get him to Falma. I think this is a shot of Ishamael exiting from a pit or location where he just freed Lanfear, and I think this woman covered in blood is likely Lanfear being freed. Some of the unknown shots of Ishamael's face are probably scenes of him taunting Rand in dreams, or meeting with Forsaken or Dark Friends in the World of Dreams. I think these shots all go together and are part of Moraine's early season arc. Somehow Moraine has her horse in this scene, and then she gets scared off of the horse by a Fade, and then I think she hides around a corner with her knife here, and Lan or somebody will fight and hopefully kill the Fade. Could this replace the scene of her being nearly killed by a Drakkar in book 2? Then Moraine will give her "you have no conception of the power they wield" line to a shocked Lan that we got in the sneak peek teaser. I think Moraine will know early on that the Shadow is trying to stop her. She's probably talking about the Forsaken. The confusing part about this is that Moraine has her horse here, and Lan has his horse in this scene from episode 3. But last we saw the horses, they were left outside of the gateway near Tar Valon. It's likely the horses made their way back to the White Tower, but how did Moraine and Lan get their horses back? I think it's possible that Egwene and Nynaeve will be dropped off in the city by Moraine and Lan at the very start of the season. Moraine is banished from the tower, but Lan isn't, and they can both still enter the city. Maybe Lan will retrieve their horses from the White Tower stables before they head out towards Cairhien to find Rand. This Fade attack could happen later, but I think it has to happen before episode 4. I believe these two images are part of Perrin's early storyline. This scene of people on horses makes me think of the start of The Great Hunt, when they're chasing after Pat and Fane and his Trollocs. In the book, Pat and Fane overpowers a Fade and nails it to a door, as we see in this second image. I'm sure Rand and Matt will not be with Perrin, Loial, and the Shienarans during this storyline, like they are in the books. Also, I believe they're introducing Elias, the Wolf Brother, in place of Hurin, the Sniffer. I'm sad to lose Hurin, as he's one of my favorite minor characters, but I think it is wise to give Perrin more time to talk with Elias and learn about his connection with the wolves. This is likely Elias in this scene here. He's the one with the animal skins. I didn't know where else to place this image of Rand alone, but I do think this will happen before Cairhien, because he's still wearing the same clothes he was wearing at the end of season 1. I'm hopeful that this is like one of those scenes in the third book when Rand is alone at night and is attacked by dark friends or dark hounds. Rand's shaved head is likely due to him trying to lay low so as not to attract the attention of people who might recognize that he looks like an Aielman. Speaking of Rand being alone, I'm hopeful that these shots of him tied to the wheel in my limbo section will actually happen later in the season, but I put them here because I think Rand will likely meet Lanfear as Selene in the first half of the season, and I believe she's the one who's messing with him in this scene, probably in a dream. I didn't include this shot because it was more or less a repeat, but there appears to be a woman walking towards Rand from a throne as he's tied here. But as I say, I'm hopeful that this will happen later in the season, and that these could be part of a flicker sequence around episode 6 or 7. In episode 1, we see Egwene already in the tower kitchens. Remember, these images with the orange outlines are assigned to their respective episodes based on direct information from the Prime Video press release. Egwene's entering a nice room somewhere in the White Tower here, where I'm guessing she's delivering food from the kitchen to an Aes Sedai. I originally thought this was Egwene entering her novice quarters for the first time, but Madeline Madden mentioned in an interview that her room is not very nice, so I think this is possibly Varen's room, but it could be any Aes Sedai. This is why I put this shot of Varen here. It's possible that Varen will be introduced early on in episode 1, and will be the one who drops the girls off at the White Tower. This background behind Varen definitely matches the city streets of Tar Valon. I've broken this down in another video that you should check out. Anyway, could we be getting a scene where Egwene receives the Dream Terangrial ring from Varen as early as this? I'm hopeful that's what will be happening here. I personally don't believe that Egwene will be returning to the White Tower to take her accepted test after she goes to Falma. I think she and Rand and others will go straight from Falma at the end of Season 2 to the Aiel Waste to bring the story in line with Book 4. This means that Egwene will need to get the ring before she goes to Falma. This also means that Egwene might never take her accepted test in the show, or at least not until after the events of Books 4 and 5. Now I know some of you will hate this, but I'll have to discuss my theory about this in greater detail another time. We don't see the colored cuffs on Egwene's dress at any time in these shots, so I'm pretty sure she and Elaine will remain novices for a longer period of time. Speaking of that, the reason I put Nynaeve's weird shot with a sword in the warder's training area here is because her dress does not have the colored cuffs of an accepted, like we see in a later shot. That said, I do think this scene could be a vision from her accepted test, or could happen later. Then we've got Sad Mat. I think Mat will be attempting to escape the tower early on, and I'm hopeful that we'll get the famous quarterstaff scene, or a variation of it, early in Season 1, because Book 3 Mat is so great and I want to get that version of his character as quickly as possible. I hope we see him going on a gambling spree and winning a ton of money, and I really want to see the sequence from Book 3 where he's chased by a gray man on the rooftops of Tar Valon and accidentally kills it with blind luck. I do believe this is Mat in the same warder training area where Nynaeve is shown with the sword, so it makes sense to me that these would happen in the same episode. I also think he's holding a spear here instead of a quarterstaff, which actually feels like a smart choice considering Mat's future weapon. As for episode 3, this is definitely Nynaeve taking her accepted test. The arches in the background make that clear. I believe this image of Nynaeve with her hair unbraided, and possibly this image of Lan with his horse, also take place as part of her visions during the test. I think these remaining episode 3 shots are all from the same scene, and actually probably happened before her accepted test. It's hard to be sure, but there's a brief glimpse of Nynaeve's dress cuffs, and they don't have any colors that I can see. Also, the furniture in this room appears nice, similar to what Swan has in her office in Season 1, but the floor isn't quite as ornate, so I think this is Sheriam's study, and Nynaeve will meet with Sheriam, then go from here to take her accepted test directly after this. As for these other shots, this sad Egwene shot could really go anywhere, but I think it has to happen sometime before she's taken captive in Falma. She seems to be wearing her same novice white clothes, and I think this is the White Tower in the background. The worry on her face makes me think that she's having dreams about Rand being in danger, which could add to her desire to help him when she and the other girls are approached by Liandrin. I put this in limbo because it's possible this shot happens later, possibly even in Falma, but I think it's unlikely. This shot of Moraine in the bath is the one shot that I think probably happens during episode 4, but it could happen sooner. Speaking of episode 4, here's what I think will happen. Rand will arrive in the Foregate outside of Cairhien on or before this episode. At some point, he will end up finding Lan and Moraine as he gets caught up in the game of houses. Moraine will be dealing with political issues and likely will be meeting with other members of her family in Cairhien. I think this scene of her crying could happen during or before this as she's working through the drama of being part of a fallen house and her inability to use the One Power. I think that rather than having Swan Sanche meet with Rand in Faldara, instead Swan will meet Rand and Moraine in Cairhien. I I could be wrong, but I think some of the tiles in the background here match parts of sets that appear to be in Kyrian. I'm hopeful that we'll get to see some scenes of Lan training Rand, both with the sword and teaching Rand how to appear arrogant in front of the Armorland, like he does in The Great Hunt. If these images of Lan aren't part of Nynaeve's accepted test from episode 3, or him doing sword forms alone, then I'm hopeful these are scenes of Lan teaching Rand how to use the Heron-marked sword. I think it's important that Swan meets Rand face to face, and I think it will help with giving Moiraine more connections to Swan before the events of Book 4 happen in Season 3. There are theories that Moiraine was not stilled by Ishamael at the end of Season 1, but just has a major shield tied off, temporarily blocking her from the source. Swan was shown untying knots in 2 different scenes in Season 1, so many suspect that Swan will help Moiraine untie her shield. I don't think that Swan will completely untie Moraine's shield this early in Season 2, but I do think she'll help Moiraine understand that it's just a complex knot, and that there's hope that she isn't permanently cut off from the One Power. Notice how Rand's clothes seem to get fancier in these shots? I think this will be part of Moraine's influence before he meets with the Armorland, if that happens at all. It definitely looks like Lan and Moiraine are behind Rand in this shot, and he appears to have the same fancy coat in this close-up. My guess is that he'll be meeting with Ishamael in his dreams while he's in Kyrian. I'm not sure what this explosion is, but I think it happens in the foregate outside of the city. This could be an Illuminator-related fire, or a fire caused by Dark Friends at the inn where Rand is staying, just like in the book, or it could be some sort of diversion so that Rand can escape the city unnoticed by Dark Friends. It looks to me like Rand is walking through the smoke from that or another fire, and I'm pretty sure Moiraine and Lan are behind him. There were some leaked images of straw Trolloc puppets in the Kyrian sets, so I'm hopeful we'll get to see Trollocs in the streets of Kyrian. At some point, Rand, probably accompanied by Moiraine and Lan, will attend Barthanes' party, like in Book 2, with the hopes of accessing a waygate on his property. We often overlook the fact that Barthanes' last name is Demodred, just like Moiraine. I think Moiraine is dressed for that party here. I'm hopeful that Rand will possibly try to use the waygate to go to Falma, and that's when we'll get the flicker sequence, but I'll get to that in a bit. I think this is an image of Lan with a waygate in the background, so I think this will happen sometime around here in Kyrian. There are a bunch of other images down here in the middle season prediction box, which means I think some of these could happen as early as episode 3, and others might happen as late as episode 5 or 6. This is likely part of Perrin's middle storyline, but I could see it happening even earlier, especially because we don't have any episode 2 images. I think he'll free Aviendha and possibly other Aiel, hopefully Gaul, from a cage, and I'm actually hopeful that Perrin will meet Dane Bornhold for the first time during this scene, and that he might even kill a White Cloak or 2. As for these 2 images, I'm not sure they go together, but it seems to me like we'll be seeing Perrin and the Shienaran soldiers making their way to Falma through a waygate, possibly near a steading. And these images of Nynaeve, Egwene, and Elaine are very likely from the scenes where they meet Liandrin and follow her to the waygate to Falma. I'm not totally sure this scene of a woman on a horse comes from this same part, but I like to think this takes place on the other side of the waygate when Egwene gets captured and Elaine and Nynaeve manage to get away. It doesn't look like Moiraine to me, but it could be her on this horse. I think it's Elaine. I like the idea that episode 4 will end with all of our characters entering waygates from different places. The girls in Tar Valon with Liandrin, Rand, Lan, and Moiraine in Kyrian near Barthanes' manor, and Perrin and the Shienarans entering a waygate from a steading. I'll leave this final image here as we move on to episode 5. I don't know if we'll get more of a time skip, but I'm guessing we won't spend much time in the ways, at least not from Perrin's point of view. I think episode 5 will focus mostly on Perrin and the Shienarans. They'll arrive in Toman Head after exiting their waygate, probably pretty early in episode 5. They'll eventually get into some sort of fight or skirmish with Shan-Chan soldiers at night. Loial and all of them will likely get captured, and then the next morning they'll be brought to Suroth and probably forced to take oaths to the Shan-Chan. The reason I'm not sure about where this happens is because Perrin's wounds look fresh here, but it's during the day. Then we have this night sequence, and then he appears to have the same wounds later here, but they look older. I have a hard time believing he'll be able to hold off the Shan-Chan all night and into the morning before being captured and forced to take the oaths. But this shot has to happen before these because of his wounds. I don't want Uno to die, but I wonder if he'll refuse to take the oaths here and Perrin will see him get killed by the Shan-Chan. Perhaps that's why Perrin is reacting in this way in this shot. We'll see Suroth at some point in this episode talking with Ishamael, but not necessarily in this order. But it does have to happen after they take the oaths and Loial becomes a Shan-Chan servant. I don't think we'll see any of Rand, Moiraine, or Lan's storyline in this episode, but I do think this episode will be a major introduction to the Shan-Chan through Perrin's point of view. Then I think we'll likely see Egwene, Nynaeve, Elaine, and Liandrin exiting their waygate, and Egwene will be captured right as the episode ends. It would be a major cliffhanger. Episodes 6 and 7 are a mystery, but I think we'll probably see Egwene dealing with being a Damane for a major chunk of one of these episodes. I think this might be a scene where she's being trained, and of course we have this devastating moment which I can't wait to see. I think Matt will be trying to catch up with the girls and will arrive in Falma at some point in one of these episodes as well, hopefully with Varen. I also think we'll learn more about the White Cloaks and what they're doing in Falma. I believe this is Jaikim Karadin, or maybe Bayar, and I think he and these White Cloaks are working with the Shanchan, or at least with Suroth and Ishamael. I know many people don't think we'll be getting the Flicker sequence, but I'm holding out hope that one of these 2 episodes, probably episode 7, will be almost entirely dedicated to that. I think at the end of episode 4, Rand, Lan, and Moraine will attempt to enter a Waygate, and since Moraine still won't be able to channel, she'll have to rely on Rand to try and open it. I don't think we'll see portal stones, but I do think the Waygate will act as the portal stones did in Book 2. I think Rand will make a mistake, and they will all experience thousands of Flicker lives, but we won't see that until episode 6 or 7. I think Moraine and Lan will end up somewhere in Falma, at this location where there's likely a Waygate near the beach, and I don't think Rand will show up again until episode 8. As for the finale, I believe all of the characters will end up in Falma, just like the end of Book 2. Notice that enough time has passed here that Perrin doesn't have any wounds, and Masima, one of the Shienaran soldiers, appears to be wearing Shanchan armor, which means he's either taken the oaths and is working for the Shanchan, or he's undercover to try and enter the city with Perrin. Also, it's pretty likely that this is Loyal's arm in this shot, and since he seems to be serving the blood in episode 5, I'm guessing he's working as a Shanchan servant, and he and Masima are helping Perrin and the Aiel enter the city. There are definitely 2 groups of White Cloaks. I believe this group is working for Jaikim Karadin, or maybe Bayar, and this group that's charging here is part of Jeffrem Bornhold's group. I'm not entirely sure, but I think Eamon Valda is here as well. I don't know how Matt will end up with Perrin and possibly Rand, but I think everything will come to a head right around the time when Rand enters the city to try and save Egwene, and I think the season will end close to how Book 2 ended. Rand will face Turok, but I'm not sure he'll beat him. I have a theory that Rand won't be good enough yet, and that Ishamael will actually kill Turok at this moment and then begin fighting Rand. On the other hand, if Rand experiences the Flicker realities, it could be enough to teach him to be a Blade Master. There will be a major battle between the Shanchan and the White Cloaks. You can see the White Cloaks planning their attack on this map shot, and later the same trebuchets are visible as they charge. At some point Matt will blow the horn, though I don't yet know how he'll get it. Then fog will roll in, the heroes of the horn will answer the call, Matt will look Arthur Hawkwing in the face, and then the battle will churn against the Shanchan. All of this will happen while Egwene is being freed by Nynaeve and Elaine, and possibly Min. You can see these Shanchan soldiers on a boat being burned, which I hope is happening because of the heroes joining the fight, but this could also be happening as Nynaeve and Elaine and Egwene are attempting to escape the city on a boat with Bael Domon. I believe Rand will face off against Ishamael, and will probably beat him for good in this finale. Rand will be severely wounded on his side, but he'll win. I'm not sure if Rand and Ishamael will be seen in the sky. It feels like it could be hard to pull that off without it seeming corny, but we'll see. Also, there is a theory that Rand will find and use Kalendor here instead of Intir, but I personally hope that's not the case. I don't want to see Rand beat Ishii with another sa'angreal. He needs to beat him by sheathing the sword, just like at the end of Book 2. Finally, I think these last 2 shots happen after the battle, when Rand is recovering. I haven't really talked about Min, but she appears to have her head shaved here, and the slats on the windows here appear to match the slats in this shot of Rand. So I'm guessing Min will arrive in Falma alongside the girls, or maybe with Matt later, and that she'll become a Shanchan servant. I also like the theory that Varen will accompany Matt in the ways to go and find the girls, which is how he'll make it to Falma. It would be cool to see Matt face his fear and enter the ways after he chickened out in Season 1. But anyway, maybe Min will be a servant of the Shanchan and will help aid Nynaeve and Elaine in freeing Egwene. But then she'll help nurse Rand back to health near the end of the season, after he gets his unhealable wound from Ishamael. I'm guessing this season will end very similar to how Book 2 ends. Maybe Lanfear will even show up and reveal herself to Min. Oh man, we did it. Remember how I started this video saying that Season 2 will be very different from the books, and then I tried my best to fit all of this into what we know happens in Book 2? I never said I want there to be lots of changes, and I definitely like the books better than the show. I still desperately want them to stay more in line with the story I love from Robert Jordan. Anyway, thanks so much for watching and sticking around to the end. I know some of you have opinions, good and bad. I want to hear what you have to say, but please remember to keep your comments respectful. Name-calling or racist or bigoted comments will not be tolerated. Check the description for helpful links, and until next time, let the dragon ride again on the winds of Prime.